Marketer of the Day, episode 523. Increase authority and influence at the same time. Be controversial. Create a compelling message. Operate in your sphere of genius and scale massively. With Josh Elledge.
Hey everyone, we're so glad that you're listening to the Marketer of the Day podcast. We're talking with Josh Elledge, and Josh is on a mission to help entrepreneurs attract the perfect audiences. He's the founder and chief executive angel of SavingsAngel.com, and they've become a major operation, employing up to 50 employees and grossing more than $5 million in sales over the past 8 years, with less than $500 spent in advertising because they used PR. Now, Josh is also a podcaster. He has a show called The Savings Angel Show, and he also has a software as a service membership-based website called UpMyInfluence. So we're going to hear all about what Josh has going on these days, what he's up to, what makes him special. So Josh, glad to be talking to you.
Hey, thank you so much. This is going to be awesome.
Yeah, I think so too. It's been about a year and a half of time passing to get you on the show. It's been like some back and forth and reaching out again. And I really like this whole idea of what you have going on, because all of this publicity, PR stuff, it's really mystified me for a while, but I've seen it be done right over and over again, that after all these years, it's finally starting to click with me. So, I mean, what are you all about? Can you explain to us the quick answer for that?
Yeah, right. So Savings Angel, when I launched it 11 years ago, I really had no money for marketing, but yet I knew that exposure was everything. And so previously, I had served as a journalist in the United States Navy for 5 years. And then at one point, I had actually owned a small town newspaper for about a year and a half. So I had some familiarity with the world of journalism. And so instead of advertising, which of course you have to do to attract people in the top of your funnel, exposure is everything, right? You need to expose your business opportunity or idea to people so that you can get feedback, so that you can improve your system, so that ultimately you can launch something that you can absolutely scale with. So rather than money, I had good intentions, and I just reached out to local media and I said, look, I would love to advertise on your radio station, or I'd love to advertise in your newspaper or your ad magazine, but I don't have any money. But here's what I could do instead. I would love to be of service to your audience and provide content that would be extremely valuable. And in some cases, we would do a revenue share if we drove some business out of that. But I was able to get on air. I started with a local Christian broadcaster, and then I worked up to working with Clear Channel and doing nationally syndicated radio. Then I started working. I was featured in a local newspaper. Then I started writing for that newspaper. And then I started writing for the newspaper syndicate, which I've been doing now for over 8 years. TV, similarly, I started by doing local TV, and then that expanded into doing a lot of TV. And I've been doing nationally syndicated TV now for 6 years, again, all as part of Savings Angel. So I started helping a lot of startups pro bono in our local market. I've since moved to Orlando with my family. And, I just believe that, when you have success, you should give back. And so I started teaching them, well, here's exactly what I did. And here's all you have to do. It's not that hard. But authority is a really big part of this. We'll talk about that in our conversation here. But, just long story short, they started having success with what I was teaching them. And then some of them started getting funding and they wanted to hire me. And I'm like, well, okay. And so that's what has become UpMyInfluence. So UpMyInfluence is really a platform that is designed to democratize PR. So rather than having to pay thousands and thousands of dollars in billable hours, we've really just created a system that allows you to do it at a fraction of the cost with our guidance and help, because it is still, it's helpful if you can have someone to kind of navigate you around, but do so in a way that's going to generate immense return on investment, which we feel like we've done pretty well.
Super cool. There's a lot packed in there that gives us a good jumping off point here. And And yeah, I really like your thought process, your way of thinking, where it seems like it's like one thing's led to another, right? Like you contact the local news agencies, and that led to bigger stuff, and that led to teaching it. And I really like that whole concept. And I've seen people like other marketers, business owners, people like that, and I've seen them do things like appear on TV. And at first I was like, I don't understand what that's all about, until I realized, oh yeah, that was part of them establishing their credibility. Or I've been surprised at sometimes how easy it is to get people to hop on a little podcast, and I didn't get it at first, and I realized, oh yeah, they're cranking out this day after day. Or I see people who get published on places like Forbes or Entrepreneur Magazine, and at first I'm like, how do they do that? Or why do they do that? And then realizing when I see the process happen that it's a matter of they build these relationships with some of these news outlets, or they look for roundups, they look for people who have his problem, who need content to be filled. And so it's been really helpful to kind of like, as you explain some of these things, it's been helpful to see, number one, that usually I'll just see like a blip on the radar as far as someone doing their publicity, so it helps to see like the whole system. And it seems like they follow a similar path to you, where they just do a little bit, they try a little bit, and then when they get published in whatever format that ends up being, whether that's on air or podcast or guest post or whatever, it seems like getting published in one place ends up leading to bigger and bigger opportunities.
It does. So a lot of times people get what I call big dealitis in PR, and they say, well, if I could just get on, if I could have Oprah brag about me to all of her followers, or if I could be on the Today Show, or if I could be on the cover of Entrepreneur Magazine. Look, it's not going to happen. I mean, unless you're already, Damon John or something like that, it's just not going to happen. And so now it can years down the road, but you have to earn your way there. And if you start at the levels that are more appropriate right now, you can actually get a lot of great media placement. But I will tell you that it's just a process. And so what we're talking about is increasing both your authority and your influence. And we want to do both at the same time. So our authority would be, I have the authority to speak on what I'm talking about, and here's my credentials, here's where I've been, here's my social media followers. I mean, there's all these, what we call these indicators of authority. It's how professional is your website. You'll attract your clients are going to be in direct proportion to the amount of money and time that you invest into the quality of your website, for example. And here's the deal. It's when you reach out to somebody and you just get crickets, they generally don't tell you why they don't respond. And I can tell you why they don't respond. 9 times out of 10 is because they just don't think that you're ready for their level. Most entrepreneurs, most business owners, most potential clients and customers are very, very, very busy. So if you can communicate that you have substantial authority, then that's going to help open the door for you, and they will spend that time with you. And again, so I really break it down into making sure that your website is amazing, your Google search results are amazing, and your social media also communicate that amazing authority. And if you can do that, you can really get about anywhere that you want.
Pretty cool. So make that website looking super slick. Make sure that when someone Googles your name and your company, that it's filled with lots of great stuff. Have those credentials, have that big social media following, so that people can, or that these people can see that when you get a piece of content published with them, that you'll promote it with your big following and all that kind of stuff. And so, and one thing with all these things that we need to have in place, one thing that comes to mind that, you and I talked about over email, like a year and a half ago, was that it's really easy to get lost in your own jargon and buzzwords, right? And that, here you go, Galen. And that, with stuff with like the news or like these huge high traffic sites, that has to be like for the masses, and it has to make this point in a really short amount of time. And so as far as people figuring out that hook, how do we go about doing it? Is it a matter of like the back and forth process, debugging the system like you mentioned early on? How do we figure out like something that makes us stand out and special and makes people like sit up and pay attention, but is also easy for everyone to understand? Seems like a really tall order there.
Yeah, well, and it is. So you're talking about two variables that you need to be very aware of. And that is, we'll talk about the first one. And that is making sure that you're talking at an appropriate level for your audience. Now, in general media, generally you want to speak to or write to a fourth grade education level. In journalism school, when I was in the Navy, they called it writing for Jethro from the Beverly Hillbillies, which obviously that's an old reference. But honestly, if Jethro can understand what you're talking about, then you're probably speaking in appropriate language. So yeah, you pointed out something that's extremely important is make sure that you just assume that people don't know a thing about you. The people who do, they'll be cool with you speaking at a more basic level. But the people who aren't able to track with you, they'll just tune out. Now, the second thing that you had mentioned is having a compelling message, and that's extremely important. So if I go on TV, and sometimes what this means is what is a compelling message? Well, a compelling message and something that a journalist or the media or other influencer is going to care about is going to be something that's going to be a little bit intriguing. It's going to make them scratch their chin and go, oh, that's interesting. I hadn't really considered that. And that's what you want to evoke. So if you're a historian and you go on TV and you say, that Adolf Hitler guy, yeah, he was a little bit of a jerk. It's like, wow, way to step out on a limb on that one. People expect that you're going to add to the conversation. And so what that means is having a unique point of view, and you should be a little bit enthusiastic or passionate about, well, that's pretty much the same thing, enthusiasm, passion, about the thing that you're talking about. And in some cases, you might want to kind of break out the torches and pitchforks and say, come with me. This is a really important thing. You all need to listen to what I'm talking about. That makes for good TV. It makes for a great guest. And it makes for a guest appearance so that you'll be invited back time and time and time again.
Awesome. So be intriguing, be looking for the kind of response like I hadn't considered that, have that unique point of view, that enthusiasm, that passion. So that way you're a little bit controversial, but you also have somewhat of a cause, it sounds like. Yeah,
I agree. Yeah, and part of that, I had a great client. It's wonderful. We get to help so many good entrepreneurs. And I fundamentally believe, by the way, that everybody has a message that can positively impact the world. And so it's really an honor to be able to kind of do the work that we do to help them amplify that message, help them to own and grow their authority, and help them to serve the world with their message to create the biggest impact. But, one gentleman we had actually written something a little bit controversial, and it was in the Bay Area. And he said that the reason that men are such weenies in the Bay Area, again, this is very controversial here, is because women are such ball busters. And you can imagine in the Bay Area, he just got eviscerated. I mean, he got slammed. I mean, it was a bloodbath for this guy. And his whole project, his whole work was teaching guys man skills. So they'd go out in the wilderness and kind of work with Navy SEALs and Army Rangers. And he said, Josh, this is horrible. I'm getting all this attention, but, I'm just getting all this, all this violence and all this other stuff thrown at me. I think I really screwed up here. And I said, well, wait a minute. Let's take a look at your overall incoming, your inquiries from potential clients. What does that look like? He goes, well, I'm actually getting a lot more. I said, look, the people who hate you, and I'm never suggesting that you should offend anyone. And in his case, he absolutely probably went overboard, and he absolutely offended somebody. But in his case, this was actually really good for his business, because the 20% of the population who would have potentially been a client of his, they were completely enrolled in what he had to say. Now, the 20% who never would have had anything to do with him, they really did. They really worked very hard to share his message to a lot of other people who were also really adamantly against it. But as a result, the guy ended up getting a lot of business as a result of it. Again, extreme example. I'm not suggesting you go to that level, but again, a point of view you should be willing to put yourself in a position where you're going to step on some toes from time to time. That's what we absolutely do with UpMyInfluence, is that, we're kind of taking on the PR industry in a way where we're democratizing it. And I speak very boldly about a PR industry is filled with good practitioners, but there's some systemic problems. It's become a country club that has priced out regular entrepreneurs and people who want to get ahead and have their voices heard. If you want to look, the old guard system is a system where if you pay someone, you pay me thousands and thousands of dollars and I'll make this introduction. It's like, come on. That is an old guard system with social media and access to influencer marketing. We just don't need that as much anymore. And so that's why the industry is really hurting right now. And you have platforms like what we're doing. It's just embracing the fact that people do have access to anybody they want through social media.
I love it. And yeah, you're so right. I mean, I agree completely that it doesn't make any sense to keep doing things the old ways, because now everyone's accessible these days with LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter and all that. Why would it be so closed off? So I love the concept. I love what you have going on. And so you explain that story there. And what has me interested about it is how do you get someone to arrive at that controversy? How do you get someone to go from point A, man skills, to point B, women are ball busters? You need to go into the woods and figure out these skills. And is it a matter of watching news clips of other people who are similar to you that you want to be like, or is it a matter of listing out a ton of ideas or looking at the recent news? How do you arrive at that controversy?
Yeah. Well, again, and don't you misquote me here. I am not saying that you need to do what this guy did. I'm just saying it was kind of an example. It was kind of an extreme example. I actually, my company is 99% female. So I am totally into embracing femininity in all of its sorts. That was him, not me. And but to answer your question, it's all about purpose. And if you truly understand what your purpose is on earth and what your gift that you have to give the world is, then this is going to be very easy for you. But until you figure out what your purpose is, you're really just going to be, I don't know, maybe just hunting for money. I don't know how else you would do it. And so for us, we really went through a process to discover, well, what is it that we do? And what we do is that, our belief, and I shared earlier, is that my purpose is, because I have a belief that every person has a unique message that can positively impact the world, we've created a platform where we turn thoughtful entrepreneurs into media celebrities, increasing their authority, influence, and revenue. I am so crystal clear on that purpose. A really great book, I haven't read it yet, but I'm familiar with all the teachings, is Robert Sinek, It's Now Begin With Why. You can watch his TED Talk and kind of get the general gist of it. But if people understand why you do what you do, it's the how doesn't even really matter. And so if you're clear on your purpose, and then from there, you figure out what your core values are, I'm telling you, if you're a busy hustling entrepreneur and you're like, Josh, I don't have time for that, I'm telling you, you are leaving money on the table. Take a couple of hours, really have a strategy session with people you trust, some coaches, some mentors, and figure this stuff out. I use my values and my purpose in pretty much everything that I do now. Employee meetings, sales calls, marketing. I'm speaking at social media marketing this week, and you better believe I'm going to invoke a lot of our purpose and values.
So it sounds like it really helps to have somewhat of the community or the support system, other people looking from the outside in at your message to help flesh that out. And so just to make sure that we're on the same page here, you mentioning purpose and core values. What are those things look like? Are they like 5 bullet points or sentences? When you say a purpose and you say core values, what does that look like?
Well, I think a good exercise that you could do to figure out what your purpose is have somebody ask you the question, why do you do what you do? And then when you answer that question, have them dig a little bit deeper and say, well, why? Well, why do you do that? Why do you do that? Well, why do you have them keep on asking why? And eventually you're going to get to some fundamental core beliefs that I think are really going to drive and shape that purpose. Now, values, that's where you really need to you start with just a total brainstorming session, and you just write down everything that you do, right? Everything that you think is a value. And then what you'll do is you'll probably have like 30, 40 values that you've put out on the table. Then what you want to do is you want to kind of arrange them into probably about 5 or so categories. And you're going to find that they all kind of fit. Well, this one's kind of like this. These are all kind of the same. And you'll find that you'll have 5 piles then. And I recommend actually just writing these all out on sticky notes so you can physically then put the sticky notes together. And then you'll look at that group of, 4 or 5 sticky notes and say, you know what? I think the best word that fits all of these is, in our case, like innovation, and then from there, it's coming up with, well, why do you innovate? Prove to me that you truly are innovating. And you just, again, you go through a who, what, when, where, why process on that term, and you figure out exactly what that value narrative is. So for innovation, for example, is one of our 5 core values. We constantly challenge the status quo with everything that we do. And that's under our value of innovation. And so because what's really great about this is that our employees, our team, so we now have a team of getting on 20 people. And so when there's a question of what to do, I don't want them having to come to me and ask me questions, because there's only one of me, and I'm trying to do what I need to do and only I can do. They can answer questions like that themselves when they just say, well, wait a minute, here's a situation. What are our core values? Well, we believe in the value of human connection, where we harness the power of relationships to create sustainable collaboration. So, matter of fact, we just did this with building our sales team, for example. And we're like, well, I don't want to call you a sales manager. We need to really call you like the chief connector of something, because that really falls under our core value. I don't see sales as part of our core values, but we do love human connection. And so that's, clearly, that's an example of how we use that.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So it sounds like you kind of go wide at first with the possibilities, and then you categorize, and then once you categorize, then you can kind of go deep into what that means. And I mean, I have to admit, usually when I hear that kind of advice about, figure out your keywords or your core values, sometimes it sounds really cheesy, right? It sounds like something out of a business book or something. But I like how it's played out for you, because it's like you can teach a little bit and then get super enthusiastic, and if you didn't have the purpose and the core values there, then it would be kind of self-promotional, right? But instead you're saying we want to democratize the PR stuff, so that way it's like you're furthering your cause. You're not just being selfish about it. You want to help everyone else with this movement that you have going, as opposed to just here, buy my stuff. So this is making a lot of sense here. And so with all this, all these things that we should all be doing as far as figuring out our hook and our pitch and all this stuff, I noticed that you mentioned in your bio here that you've been on TV or radio over 2,000 times. So it's one thing for us to figure out what we need to say in order to get on the air and things like that, but how the heck do you find the time to do all that? I mean, 2,000 times on the air. Is that like, do you set aside time like every day or every week? Like, how do we make sure that we're putting in the time that we need to put in to promote our business without it taking all freaking day?
Mm-hmm. Well, again, that's over the course of 11 years. So I've been at this for a long time. And here's the thing. If you're acting as a solopreneur and yet you're still expecting that you're going to grow into a high 6-figure business or a 7-figure business, it's really hard. You have to surround yourself with teams. You have to make investments in coaches, in consultants, in other agencies. If you one person can only do so much. I'm sure there's some really great inspirational quotes out there. About, taking like 100 straws and banding them all together and the strength of 100 straws together kind of thing. But really, it's your goal. One of your biggest goals, if you want to make a big impact on the world, you're going to need to have a big team. That's just the truth. All right. I wish I could tell you that you could do everything on your own. But if you've been trying to grow your business on your own and you've been trying to do everything because you're afraid of the investment, you're likely experiencing a lot of stagnation in business. It's because you only have one human's efforts. One human's efforts, like, it's huge, right? But you have to make sure that you are only doing what is absolutely in your sphere of genius, and everything else needs to be given to other people. Give other people the opportunity. I surround myself with amazing people. That's how I'm able to do 2,000 media appearances. They can't do the media appearances. I can. And so I spend my time, and trust me, I do a lot of media, and some of it is, not always huge, but I do it anyway because I have a heart for service. I love serving audiences. I love bringing value. And the more value I can bring people in the world, then I know that I'm fulfilling my purpose on the planet.
Super cool. So that's a good reminder. And that's been probably I've been doing this podcast for the interview style for almost 2 years. And That's probably like almost maybe not every, but maybe like every other guest, this point comes up, that if it's just you need a team. If you have a small team, like I have a small team, it needs to be bigger. It needed to be bigger yesterday, because otherwise it's just, there's a finite amount of time during the day. We have finite amount of energy. Switching gears burns so much of that time and energy. We need more people to jump in and do what they do, so that way we can just focus on what it is that makes us great. And so with your team in place to get you to do all the things that you need to do, have you ever had just like a super action-packed day? Have you ever had a day where you were like on 2 different TV appearances and a bunch of radio and a bunch of podcasts, anything like that?
That's all the time. I mean, that's what I do. That's what my job is. So I've made the conscious decision that, well, what is it that Josh does as a CEO of these 2 companies? And Josh's job is to serve audiences. And so what that means is there's work that I would probably, it's like I have a skill for doing it, and it's a very particular set of skills. But again, I would love to do more internet development, but honestly, that's not a smart thing for me to do. Instead, I need to give those opportunities to other people. I'm really, really good at providing services to our clients. And at the beginning, I did all of it. But today I do next to none of it, because I've built up a team or systems that other people can do that stuff, so that, again, I can do what nobody else can do. And I'll be honest, we're getting to that point now where I can't do all of the media opportunities. And so I want to grow leaders within my organization and have them, imagine if you're Mark Zuckerberg and instead, it's like, well, I'd love to speak at that event, but I can't do it. I'm going to send Sheryl Sandberg instead. Sheryl Sandberg does a lot of events. And so you should be creating leaders who can eventually go out and start representing your mission to audiences as well. Look, why do I do media? Why do I do tons and tons of media? Why do I love doing interviews? Why do I love serving audiences? Because I have one job, and that's to serve. And also my other job with the company internally is to grow my companies, grow Savings Angel, grow UpMyInfluence. That's my job. And as the owner of a business, I'm speaking to all other business owners and founders right now. That's your most important job. Because if you're not doing it, who is? Don't get caught up in that Michael Gerber E-Myth trap where you're like, I make the best blueberry pies in the world, so I'm going to just spend all my time making blueberry pies and growing the business. Oh, I'll just let it grow on its own. No, that's not how it works. Growing your business means you need to be it needs to be out here in front of other audiences, and you're inspiring them, and you're building up the know, like, and trust, and you're giving them value. And you're saying, you know what, that Josh guy talks really fast, and he's a little weird, but there was something I felt. I just felt it. Like there's a few things he said, and I felt it in his heart that there's probably something there I should look into. And I hope they do. Look, at UpMyInfluence, we do a lot of pro bono stuff. I believe in serving. I believe in especially helping those who have zero budget, because if you're in business for yourself, you're not going to have zero budget for long if you pay. If you listen to this podcast, honestly, And Robert, what you're telling me about the other guests in the past have said the same thing about building a team. You're gonna have a very profitable business in no time. Just keep following the advice of the guests, like the guests that Robert has on his show, and it's one thing to learn it. It's another thing to do it. When you do it, the learning that you gain from the doing is 10 times more powerful.
Right. I agree completely. I mean, super inspiring message here. And yeah, and I admit that I fell into that e-myth trap of the, being stuck doing everything and being the worker years and years ago. And I just thought that if I, made the ebooks, made the software products, that people would find me. And it was really tough. And then probably about a decade ago, I realized that I needed to focus on traffic in one way or another, growing the business, getting new eyeballs in there. And as soon as I started doing that, everything changed. And what was really helpful, and what I'm hearing, at least what I'm hearing in my own head as you're explaining some of this stuff, is that it evolves over time, and we don't have to suddenly make a jump to something else, right? Like if we're stuck in our own business, we don't have to suddenly say, okay, today I'm out, I'm going to hire all these people. We can slowly hire people in to make things less drastic. And it's really inspiring how you're saying that not only have you moved to being the person, like the face, the person that promotes stuff, but even that's starting to max out. And now you're getting to the point where you're having to bring other people on to do the PR. So this is really cool how it's like, it just keeps on growing over time if we're doing it right. And it doesn't have to be a harsh transition. It's just if something outgrows or outlives its usefulness, then we can move on to the next thing. So you really opened my eyes and my brain to some of this new thinking. And I'm sure a lot of people listening too. And I want to make sure in these last few minutes here that everyone knows all about Mr. Josh Elledge. We talked about UpMyInfluence a little bit. We talked about Savings Angel. So can you tell us like what we need to know about you and what sorts of websites, offers we should check out?
Yeah, well, right now, if you hurry, because my agency that manages my sales funnel is saying, Josh, you can't do this. And this is a legit conversation like we've had. Right now, I'm really, because again, our core value is democratization. We actually took our $1,200 video course and we made it available for free. That is soon ending. I think we're going to make it like $59 or something like that. But I sold a lot of them at $1,200. Right now, you can get it for free. And so to get it for free, you go to upmyinfluence.com. And then you click on pricing where you can see all of our products. And then the very top one, you should see an offer that it says free. Check our free, all the free stuff membership. Do it. And I would say jump on it. And download that or get in there, create an account and digest it before we do have to put that out. I think we're going to turn it into like a Tripwire product or something like that. We have to, because we have I don't have anything as a Tripwire, and they're like, you need something at the $99 level. So do it for free while it's still free.
Awesome. That's very generous of you. So upmyinfluence.com is the place to claim that free course that, like we said, it used to be $1,200. It'll probably be $99. So right now, this is your chance to grab it for free. Upmyinfluence.com, click on pricing, go to that, find that top option, and that way you can get the free training. And that way you can figure out what it is that you need to know in order to get noticed. So that way you can be the person that focuses on, like Josh said, growing the business, and not just the person in the back of the ship rowing. That doesn't sound like fun. That sounds like creating another job. What you want to do is be a business owner who gets more leads and traffic and all that good stuff coming into your business. So you need to go to upmyinfluence.com right now, click on the pricing tab, and choose that top option. So are there any other offers you want to share here, Josh, or is upmyinfluence.com just the place to be?
Well, for business owners, absolutely. If you would like to learn how to get deals, hookups, and upgrades on anything in life, you're certainly welcome. If you love listening to podcasts like this one, you might consider my podcast. And on my podcast, I'm basically the guy who just knows how to get a hookup or upgrade on anything in life. That's my Savings Angel persona that I built. So I would love to have you check out an episode or two of that.
Awesome. And everyone loves to get a leg up on life, right? And get those special deals and get something for nothing or something extra. So make sure you go to savingsangel.com to check out that podcast. And so as we're about to close the lid on this podcast, Josh, is there anything that you wish you could tell yourself 10 years ago? If you can send a message back in time, would you tell yourself anything?
Oh my gosh, 10 years ago? Buckle up, buddy, because this is going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, it really, really has, thankfully I've had a mindset of personal development and personal growth. That's always been really big. Oh gosh, if I were to tell myself 10 years ago and I were to explain how big podcasts are going to be, I probably would have gotten started a lot sooner in that, for sure. Podcasting is just such an amazing platform where you can learn anything that you want. You can become as powerful as you want emotionally, spiritually, intellectually, and in business. You get to learn from the masters. So I just encourage you to, if you're just a podcast novice, dig in deep, man. Go through. Robert, how many episodes do you have? You have like hundreds, right?
Over 500, yeah.
Yeah, oh my gosh, just go back and listen to 500 episodes. Listen, that's better than any college class you'll ever take, that's for sure.
I agree, and I love it too, because I'll do that all the time. If I'm looking to solve some kind of problem, I'll bring up my podcasting app, I'll type something in, I'll go for a walk. By the time the walk's over, I learned some stuff. So, I mean, better than watching TV or listening to some music, you actually improve your life. So why wouldn't you do it? And also the thing you mentioned there about being tapped into the personal development and personal growth stuff, it really shows. And that's a good reminder for all of us. Even if we think that we heard it once, it's always good to revisit and refresh at least a little something every single day. That way we get that healthy brain stuff in our mind, right? And so
love it. So, you're absolutely right, Robert.
Cool. We're both in agreement there. I mean, it makes it a pretty easy conversation here. So everyone needs to go right now to savingsangel.com if you want to figure out how to get life hacks, deals, and research strategies for earning and saving more money. Again, savingsangel.com. And UpMyInfluence is a software as a service membership-based website providing step-by-step video coaching, live training, and direct access to over 1 million media contacts, media monitoring for ongoing story ideas, all kinds of great stuff to, like Josh said, democratize this process of you getting attention, getting on air. So savingsangel.com, upmyinfluence.com, and we'll see you there. And thanks, Josh, for stopping by and sharing all this cool stuff.
Yeah, thank you, my friend.
Please follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/Robert Plank. That's twitter.com/Robert Plank. And while you're adding me, also like Marketer of the Day on Facebook by going to facebook.com/Robert